In his work, Puppets, Enrico Verissimo delivers a thorough examination of the pursuit of contentment, prompting us to consider the genuine core of joy. The account of the sorrowful man, consumed by a platonic affection nurtured from afar for a young woman, acts as a mirror to the human condition, revealing aspirations, desires, and most significantly, the deception that happiness resides in something so elusive, yet paradoxically manifests with greater intensity at a distance. The melancholy protagonist dedicates his days to observing the young woman through the window, perceiving her as a beacon of light, illuminating his existence. He convinces himself that she reciprocates his feelings with fondness, understanding, and perhaps even affection. Immersed in this daily fantasy, he sustains himself on the idealized image of the young woman and the life they might share, believing that closeness would transform happiness into reality, into something tangible. He yearns for an encounter. However, the young woman's father, imbued with the wisdom that life provides, offers him crucial advice. Happiness reveals itself more fully when maintained at a distance, because upon closer inspection, it dissolves. These words affect the man in a way he doesn't yet fully understand, but which resonates with the truth of his emotions deep down. His life is permeated by the illusion that happiness is within his reach, waiting only to be conquered. Nevertheless, reality manifests implacably when he finally ventures to approach the young woman. In attempting to reach her, he discovers that she doesn't see him. Contrary to what he imagined, she is blind, the realization that she never perceived. His presence confronts him with a painful truth. The happiness he idealized, fueled by his own desires and fantasies, never existed. The young woman was never part of his reality. She was merely a reflection of his dreams. The vision of love and fulfillment that he constructed in his mind collapses the instant he tries to touch this happiness, and disappointment overwhelms him. At this point, Verissimo's narrative intertwines with another equally powerful metaphor, that of the enchanted bird. Let us imagine in a parallel universe a girl who falls in love with a free bird. The enchanted bird flies freely, coming and going as it pleases. She loves it deeply, but her affection is tainted by the need for possession, by the desire to own something that by its very nature can never be entirely hers. She longs for the bird to remain by her side forever, and in a moment of despair, she takes an ill-advised action. She imprisons the bird in a cage, hoping that they will be happy forever. However, what the girl doesn't realize is that the bird's enchantment resides in its freedom. Upon being imprisoned, the bird loses what made it special, what made it enchanted. In attempting to ensure happiness through possession, the girl destroys the very essence of what she loved. The bird, now captive, ceases to be enchanted, transforming into a sad bird devoid of joy. To retain its charm, the bird needed to fly. These two narratives, that of the sad man and that of the girl with the enchanted bird, converge on a crucial point. The relentless pursuit of happiness, when motivated by possession or idealization, can result in frustration and disillusionment. True happiness, like the enchanted bird, flourishes in liberty, in acceptance of impermanence, and in appreciation of the present moment. Just as the sorrowful man learns that the idealized young woman is not, both the narrative of the melancholic man and the tale of the girl who desired the enchanted bird share a significant connection, delving into the misconception that joy can be a tangible and enduring possession. In reality, happiness frequently proves fleeting, contingent on circumstances and perspectives. The sorrowful man's yearning to possess the young woman exemplifies this pitfall. As he draws nearer, the idealized image he had constructed crumbles. Similarly, The girl's aspiration to eternally hold the bird culminates in the destruction of its unique and captivating essence the instant she deprives it of its freedom. Both narratives function as cautionary tales, underscoring that attempting to control or possess happiness in an absolute manner invariably leads to its loss. Let's explore these themes from various angles. Initially, we will examine the narratives through the lens of psychology, endeavoring to comprehend the mental processes that imbue these illusions with such power, while simultaneously rendering them so detrimental. How do our desires and expectations shape our perception of happiness, and how can the relentless pursuit of possession hinder us from attaining genuine joy? The story recounted by the sad man, extracted from Enrico Verissimo's book, Puppets, and that of the girl who imprisons the enchanted bird, conceived by Ruben Alves, prompt us to contemplate the manners in which we seek happiness, frequently traversing paths that paradoxically lead us to suffering. Modern psychology provides valuable insights into how we grapple with the notion of happiness, particularly when it is idealized or distorted, as in the narratives we are considering. A fundamental question to raise is the pursuit of external or idealized happiness. The melancholic man from Verissimo believed that happiness was within his reach, reflected in the gaze of the blind young woman. In psychology, this phenomenon is known as idealization, a mental process in which we transform something or someone into an ideal of perfection, devoid of flaws or imperfections. This phenomenon is extensively studied in relation to self-esteem and relationships. Psychologists point out that by idealizing a person or object, we create unrealistic expectations that inevitably clash with reality. When the man realizes that the young woman cannot reciprocate his affection in the manner he envisioned, he experiences what psychology calls disillusionment. Disillusionment is an intense emotional response that arises when our expectations are not met. In the context of the pursuit of happiness, this disillusionment can be particularly painful, as we often cling to an unattainable ideal, a construct of our own minds. Psychology also addresses happiness as an internal process. The renowned psychologist and author Viktor Frankl, in his work Man's Search for Meaning, argues that true joy does not emanate from external sources, but from the way we interpret our own lives and the challenges we face. Happiness does not reside in the gaze of the young woman or in the enchanted bird, but in our ability to find meaning in the situations we experience, even the most difficult ones. Frankl, a survivor of the Holocaust, discovered that even amidst pain and suffering, it is possible to find a purpose that provides us with a profound sense of peace and contentment. This leads us to another crucial point: the distinction between pleasure and true happiness. Pleasure is often associated with fleeting sensations and external stimuli, such as acquiring material possessions or experiencing exciting moments. While pleasure can provide temporary satisfaction, it is not synonymous with lasting happiness. True happiness, on the other hand, stems from a deeper sense of purpose, connection, and meaning in life. It involves cultivating positive emotions, developing resilience, and fostering meaningful relationships. The narratives of the melancholic man and the girl with the enchanted bird illustrate the dangers of confusing pleasure with true happiness. Both characters seek happiness through external sources, the man through the idealized affection of the young woman and the girl through the possession of the bird. However, their pursuit of pleasure ultimately leads to disappointment and loss because they fail to recognize that true happiness comes from within. Another relevant concept in the psychology of happiness is the idea of flow, a state of complete absorption in an activity that is both challenging and engaging. When we are in a state of flow, we lose track of time and become fully immersed in the present moment. This experience can be highly rewarding and contribute to our overall sense of well-being. Furthermore, the narratives highlight the importance of acceptance and letting go. The melancholic man struggles to accept that the young woman cannot fulfill his idealized expectations, while the girl refuses to let go of the bird, even when it becomes clear that her possessiveness is harming it. In both cases, their inability to accept reality and let go of their desires leads to suffering. Learning to accept the impermanence of life and the limitations of our control is essential for cultivating inner peace and happiness. Ultimately, the narratives of the melancholic man and the girl with the enchanted bird offer profound lessons about the nature of happiness and the pitfalls of seeking it through external sources or control. They remind us that true happiness is an internal process that requires self-awareness, acceptance, and a commitment to finding meaning and purpose in life. By cultivating these qualities, we can create a more lasting and fulfilling sense of well-being, independent of external circumstances. Within the realm of psychology, the pursuit of genuine happiness stands as a pivotal concept. Groundbreaking. Research conducted by psychologist Edward Diner, a distinguished figure in the field of positive psychology, has illuminated that individuals who experience the greatest joy are those who orient their lives around their core values and authenticity. This contrasts sharply with chasing external expectations or conforming to an imposed ideal of happiness. Authentic happiness is inextricably linked to living an authentic life. This entails a deep understanding of oneself, encompassing the recognition of one's own emotions and the cultivation of the ability to navigate both positive and challenging life experiences with equanimity. In the narrative of the girl and the enchanted bird, the protagonist's quest for joy also reveals a yearning for control. She believes that by confining the bird, she will secure unwavering, unchanging happiness. However, the science of human behavior demonstrates that attempting to dominate or retain what we cherish, whether a person, a situation, or a feeling, rarely leads to complete satisfaction. On the contrary, excessive control can breed anxiety, apprehension, and disappointment. This manifests vividly in the phenomenon of separation anxiety, where individuals, in their attempt to control and preserve what they value most, become trapped by their own need to maintain control. This, in turn, stifles emotional freedom and fluidity. The psychology of happiness also delves into the intricate relationship between well-being and expectations. When the melancholy man in Verissimo's story idealizes the young woman, he conjures a fantastical image of what she would represent in his life. Upon confronting reality, he realizes that the happiness he envisioned was, in essence, a chimera. Experts in the study of the human mind caution that excessively high expectations can be detrimental to mental health, fostering a constant pressure for things to unfold in an idealized manner, leaving no room for imperfections. Finally, it is crucial to highlight the concept of acceptance in positive psychology, a field dedicated to exploring the conditions that foster well-being. Accepting our limitations and challenges is fundamental to achieving genuine happiness. Recognizing that joy does not reside in some distant ideal, but rather in how we navigate adversity, is a crucial step toward achieving a lasting state of well-being. The sad man, in accepting that the young woman does not reciprocate his feelings, and the girl, in acknowledging that the bird needs to be free, can begin to understand that happiness lies not in attempting to hold on to or dominate something or someone, but in finding inner peace. Now that we have grasped the psychology of happiness, it is time to delve into neuroscience to explore how the brain responds to the pursuit of satisfaction and how this connects with the stories we consume. Neuroscience, while primarily focused on biological processes, also offers profound insights into human emotions and how our experiences and expectations shape the way we feel. The sad man and the girl with the enchanted bird represent two extreme methods of attempting to achieve happiness: idealization and control. Both approaches exert a profound impact on the brain, and neuroscience can help us understand why these strategies often fail. First, it is essential to understand the role of dopamine, a neurotransmitter crucial for the sensation of pleasure and motivation. Dopamine is released when we achieve a goal or perform an action we consider positive, creating a reward cycle that motivates us to repeat behaviors. However, when we idealize something, as the sad man does with the young woman or the girl does with the idea of trapping the bird, we are creating an expectation of. The brain often anticipates rewards that are not realistic, and when these expectations are unmet, it can trigger feelings of frustration and loss, potentially diminishing dopamine levels. What was intended as a source of pleasure can devolve into a frustrating cycle of disappointment. In neuroscience, this phenomenon is termed reward frustration. Research indicates that when our hopes are dashed, the brain's reaction mirrors that of experiencing a loss, activating areas associated with both pain and sorrow. This sheds light on why an obsessive pursuit of happiness, predicated on unrealistic expectations, may be a pathway to suffering and discontent. Rather than grounding our quest for happiness in external, uncontrollable factors, neuroscience suggests that cultivating gratitude, resilience, and acceptance are more effective. This strengthens the brain circuits linked to well-being and joy. Therefore, the pursuit of happiness should be an inner journey, concentrating on the development of habits and attitudes that foster robust mental health and emotional equilibrium. When individuals experience disappointment, brain areas intrinsically linked to emotional distress, such as the amygdala, show heightened activity. The amygdala, a crucial brain structure, plays a central role in processing negative emotions, including fear and frustration. Considering the example of a sad individual, frustration stems from realizing that a young, blind person has never had the experience of hearing. This realization sets off the amygdala, creating a profound sense of loss and isolation. Moreover, neuroscientific analysis reveals that excessive control, such as the girl's attempt to confine the bird, can bring about chronic stress. This state arises from the sustained activation of the sympathetic nervous system, which prepares the body to react to perceived threats by fighting or fleeing. Feeling overwhelmed by the need to control situations or people plunges the body into a state of continuous alertness, leading to a cascade of negative physical and mental health consequences. Chronic stress is tightly linked to sleep disorders, anxiety, and even cardiovascular diseases. Hence, the girl's pursuit of affection eternally under her control, instead of allowing the bird its freedom, may paradoxically lead her to emotional and physical suffering. Neuroscience also enhances our understanding of neuroplasticity, which refers to the brain's remarkable ability to reorganize itself and establish new synaptic connections in response to lived experiences. When confronting reality and internalizing that happiness does not reside in unrealistic expectations or obsessive control, the brain starts an adaptive process to this new understanding. This process is fundamental to developing resilience, which is the ability to face hardships without compromising emotional balance. When accepting the young person's condition and the girl's actions toward the bird, they are allowing their brains to reorganize themselves to find new sources of joy. These new sources are no longer founded on illusory expectations, but rather on accepting reality and pursuing emotional balance. Recent studies in neuroscience have consistently demonstrated that happiness is closely connected to the activation of specific brain regions, such as the nucleus accumbens and the prefrontal cortex. The nucleus accumbens, for instance, is essential in processing rewards and pleasure. By pursuing happiness in a realistic and genuine manner, we promote healthy activity in this region. Conversely, when the quest for happiness is based on unrealistic expectations or excessive control, these areas can be activated dysfunctionally, resulting in intense but less satisfying emotional experiences. In essence, a balanced perspective on happiness, rooted in acceptance and resilience, supports healthier brain function and emotional well-being, steering us away from the pitfalls of disappointment and chronic stress. In the long run, the concept of mindfulness, a practice that centers on being completely present and aware in the current moment, has proven to be beneficial in fostering well-being and authentic happiness. By engaging in mindfulness, we focus our attention on the here and now, free from any judgments. This permits us to embrace reality as it exists, without the distortions we frequently generate in our minds. The girl who allows the bird to fly freely, and the sorrowful man who comes to terms with the truth about the visually impaired young woman are in a way practicing mindfulness by relinquishing expectations and the urge to control the uncontrollable. This release clears the path for the brain to experience a deeper, more enduring form of happiness. In this context, the brain shifts from seeking happiness in a distant ideal or something that can be manipulated. Instead, it begins to discover it in authentic experiences and the acceptance of reality. Over time, the consistent practice of this acceptance and the pursuit of a more realistic sense of joy can lead to increased activation in the brain regions associated with well-being, promoting a lasting sensation of contentment and satisfaction. Neuroscience demonstrates that the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, a vital cerebral area involved in decision-making processes and the modulation of emotions, indicates that happiness is not a state that can be achieved through external means or by merely manipulating circumstances. True fulfillment arises from the manner in which we choose to face life's events, our capacity to cope with them, and our acceptance of reality. The search for understanding happiness finds a valuable and profound aid in philosophy. While neuroscience concentrates on the biological mechanisms that shape our emotions, philosophy invites us to ponder the fundamental questions of human existence. What does it mean to be happy? And how can we attain this state? The narrative of the sorrowful man and the girl with the enchanted bird provides fertile ground for the exploration of philosophical concepts related to happiness, desire, control, and acceptance. Since the philosophers of ancient Greece, such as Aristotle, happiness has been regarded as the primary objective of human life. Aristotle defined it as eudaimonia, a concept that can be translated as human flourishing. For him, true happiness is not based on fleeting pleasures or insatiable desires, but on the realization of our human potential through virtue and reason. This perspective aligns with the sorrowful man's pursuit of an idealized happiness, founded on the expectation that the visually impaired young woman can see him. He yearns for an unrealistic form of happiness, a projection of his own desires, that disregards the young woman's reality and what she can truly offer. Both the sorrowful man and the girl with the bird long for a distant happiness that is intended to be achieved through control or idealization. Philosophy warns us that this search is ultimately fruitless. The German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, for example, argued that human desire is the main cause of suffering. According to him, by incessantly seeking something external to complete us, we create an endless cycle of dissatisfaction. The happiness that the sorrowful man and the girl with the bird covet resides precisely in this space between desire and reality, where frustration sets in. The girl's attitude of imprisoning the enchanted bird illustrates the paradox of freedom and control, a recurring theme in philosophy, especially in the existentialism of Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir. For existentialists, freedom is a challenging concept. Freedom, a cornerstone of the human experience, extends far beyond simply indulging desires without limitation. On the contrary, genuine freedom carries with it significant responsibility for the choices we make and the actions we take. True liberty cannot exist without acknowledging and accepting the inherent constraints of our human condition. The act of a young girl attempting to confine a bird within a cage exemplifies a desire to control something fundamentally unrestrained. From an existentialist viewpoint, such an endeavor represents a negation of freedom's intrinsic worth. The bird's allure diminishes precisely because its essence lies in its ability to roam freely. By striving to dominate that which defies control, the girl forfeits the very joy she initially sought. The happiness she envisioned transforms into profound suffering as she belatedly recognizes that genuine contentment is not found in possession or dominion, but rather in freedom and the acceptance of impermanence. This concept forms a central tenet in the philosophy of figures like Heraclitus, who posited that existence is characterized by constant change, with transience serving as the only constant. Therefore, joy is not discovered by attempting to capture fleeting moments of satisfaction, but rather through embracing the fluidity of life, welcoming both its high points and its low points. The girl, in her desire for perpetual ownership of the bird, failed to grasp that its fascination stemmed from its freedom to move as it pleased. This same principle applies to affection and contentment. When we attempt to confine these emotions to specific objects or individuals, we lose touch with the true essence of the experience. Stoic philosophy, a significant influence on modern thought, suggests that happiness is not a prize to be won or an entity to be hoarded, but rather a state achieved through the unconditional acceptance of reality. Prominent Stoic philosophers, such as Seneca and Epictetus, maintained that true happiness arises from the capacity to distinguish between what we can influence and what lies beyond our control. According to Stoics, affliction and suffering emerge from our resistance to reality, from our insistence on shaping the world according to our desires. The narrative of the melancholy man who realizes that the blind girl has never experienced sight mirrors a common human experience, the realization that our expectations frequently diverge from reality. The man's anguish stems not solely from rejection, but also from his attachment to the idea that happiness is dependent on something external. Stoic teachings encourage us to relinquish our attachment to unrealistic expectations and to embrace life in its entirety, with all its imperfections and uncertainties. By internalizing the truth about his relationship with the young woman, the man could find inner peace, not by granting her sight, but through his own acceptance of the present situation. Similarly, the girl captivated by the enchanting bird must learn that true happiness is found in allowing the bird to fly freely, rather than forcing it to remain captive. Accepting transience and freedom is the key to unlocking genuine contentment. Albert Camus, the French philosopher influenced by existentialism, also emphasized that life offers no guarantees of happiness. However, he argued that true autonomy and inner serenity flourish when we accept existence in its totality, embracing its fleeting nature and unpredictability. Philosophy provides us with a profound understanding that happiness does not reside in the relentless pursuit of control or in the pursuit of an idealized state of perfection. True joy is discovered in acceptance, in the understanding that letting go is an essential part of life's journey. The pursuit of control ultimately leads to disappointment, whereas embracing the natural flow of existence paves the path towards lasting serenity and fulfillment. It is in understanding and accepting the impermanent nature of all things that we find true freedom and happiness. Life's inherent uncertainty dictates that true freedom and inner peace stem from embracing reality rather than fighting against it. The melancholic man and the girl with the enchanting bird exemplify how attempts to dominate the uncontrollable distance us from authentic joy. Serenity and inner tranquility are only attainable when we relinquish expectations and grasp the inherent liberty of the human experience. Having considered contentment through the lenses of psychology, neuroscience, and philosophy, the subsequent step involves observing how these concepts manifest in our daily lives, where theory and practice frequently diverge. True happiness, as demonstrated in previous reflections, is not something we can manipulate or possess, but rather something intrinsically linked to how we confront life's vicissitudes and our personal expectations and desires. The narrative of the sad man and the girl aptly illustrates this realization. The allegory of the enchanted bird poignantly demonstrates how the relentless pursuit of an idealized contentment can lead to frustration in real-world scenarios. On a daily basis, we are frequently confronted with unrealistic expectations and standards of joy imposed by society, the media, and even ourselves. The societal pressure to attain bliss at any cost can lead us to try to control our lives, much like the girl attempting to imprison the bird, or the man who idealizes an impossible connection with the young, visually impaired woman. However, as observed, this craving for control and ownership rarely yields enduring satisfaction. We exist within a society that persistently exposes us to representations of idealized happiness. Individuals on idyllic vacations, flawless smiles, triumphant careers, and picture-perfect relationships. Social media, in particular, intensifies this phenomenon, cultivating a culture of constant comparison. This generates substantial pressure to perpetually project joy and present impeccable lives. However, this relentless pursuit of perfection can be self-defeating. Psychologist Barry Schwartz, in his seminal work, The Paradox of Choice, argues that an overabundance of options and the pressure to make perfect choices can amplify anxiety and dissatisfaction. When we incessantly compare ourselves with the images projected by the external world, we risk losing touch with our personal reality and with what genuinely brings us joy. The girl with the bird, in attempting to force happiness through control, mirrors this dynamic. She loses the bird's magic, just as we forfeit the essence of happiness when we attempt to mold it according to external and unrealistic expectations. In day-to-day existence, we often become so fixated on achieving an idealized version of joy that we fail to acknowledge and appreciate the small pleasures that can genuinely bring fulfillment and contentment. Genuine happiness in everyday life arises from a posture of acceptance and authenticity. Rather than battling what we cannot control, we must learn to accept life's imperfections and embrace our shared humanity. Psychologist Brené Brown, in her work on vulnerability and courage, argues that authentic connection and happiness emerge from our capacity to be genuine. When we pretend to be someone we are not, or when we conceal our flaws and imperfections, we distance ourselves from true joy. Within the context of the sad man's story, he could only discover joy by accepting the reality of his situation. rather than clinging to a romanticized vision of the young woman perceiving him in the way he desired. Similarly, the girl with the bird could only learn to value it by accepting that its beauty could only truly be appreciated when free. Finding joy is about accepting that those we cherish, like a beloved bird, need their freedom. This acceptance leads to kindness toward ourselves and others. Instead of chasing an unattainable ideal of perfect happiness, we can discover satisfaction in small achievements and everyday experiences that connect us to what is genuine and real. One of the most effective methods for fostering happiness in daily life is mindfulness or focused attention. Recent studies suggest that mindfulness practices can boost our well-being, reduce stress, and improve our ability to appreciate life's simple moments. Mindfulness involves being fully present without judgment, accepting experiences as they occur without trying to control or change them. This practice mirrors the lessons learned in the story of the bird. Happiness lies in appreciating the present, accepting imperfections, and valuing the little joys that fill our lives. By cultivating a mindful attitude, we can free ourselves from the relentless pursuit of an impossible standard and find true contentment in the present moment. This journey of self-discovery and acceptance allows us to embrace the beauty of imperfection and find delight in the simple things that give our lives meaning. Instead of trying to possess the magical bird, the young woman could have learned to cherish each moment, observing the bird's inherent freedom and beauty in its everyday existence. This means ceasing the constant search for distant happiness and instead valuing the simple, genuine moments that surround us. Another crucial aspect of experiencing daily contentment is the quality of our interpersonal connections. Research indicates that social interactions are among the most significant predictors of long-term happiness. Psychologist John Cacioppo, in his studies on the effects of loneliness, found that a lack of social bonds has a detrimental impact on our mental and physical health, similar to how philosopher Martha Nussbaum argues that genuine contact with others is essential for our well-being, as it allows us to experience a sense of belonging and purpose. In the narrative of the sad man, his search for a true connection with the blind young woman reflects the human desire to connect with and be recognized by others. When we pursue happiness in isolation or in an idealized form, we often forget that lasting happiness stems from real and authentic human relationships where we can be vulnerable and accepted for who we are. In the case of the young woman and the magical bird, her happiness depended on affection that wasn't based on possession, but on the freedom of each to be themselves, allowing the bird to fly freely and return when it chose. After all, happiness is not something we can force through excessive effort or by controlling external factors. It is rooted in accepting our imperfections, valuing life's small gifts, and building genuine and authentic relationships. The story of the sad man and the girl with the enchanted bird reveals that when we try to force happiness through unrealistic expectations or manipulation, we distance ourselves from the genuine experience of well-being. True joy comes from our ability to experience the present with mindful awareness, embrace what we cannot change, and relate to others in a sincere and unreserved manner. Therefore, in concluding this reflection on happiness, we can infer that it is not found in relentless pursuit or rigid control. Instead, it blossoms from embracing the present, cherishing simple joys, and nurturing authentic relationships. This approach invites a sense of peace and fulfillment that surpasses the fleeting satisfaction of achieving an elusive ideal. By shifting our focus from external achievements to internal acceptance and genuine connection, we unlock a more sustainable and profound sense of happiness in our everyday lives. Consider life not just as an end goal, but as an adventure filled with unexpected twists, imperfections, and moments of simple beauty. If this content resonated with you, show your support by liking and sharing it with your network. It motivates me to keep developing material that enhances your life. Furthermore, if you have a topic you'd like me to explore, please share it in the comments. Your feedback is invaluable, and it will help me create videos that significantly impact your life. Until next time.